Well, good morning. We've done our first hour of the day. Now we are into the 2 hours that we do from the White Hart Hotel in the center of Lewes, in which there is no form, there is no shape. We just hit whatever comes along as it comes along. And that means having a clue what's going to happen. Although there are some things which we do know about. And hopefully, we are going to entertain one of our New York team. Mirador has a New York team, indeed it does, about 4 or 5 people strong. And Andrew Sloan is going over there in June and hopes to broadcast from New York to us. But today we hope that we're going to have Connor Winton, who many people will know from our programs as being the American chef. And he was over here and went to the brewery, Harvey's Brewery, to take a look at how they make beer. Went back and tried to replicate it, and apparently blew his mother's apartment up. But hopefully she is still in one piece. He is still in one piece, and we like from time to time to get our various correspondents on to have a little chat and tell us what's going on and what the view is from abroad. In the meantime, we also hope that people will start to get used to the fact we're here in the White Hart and that we are quite happy to have you drop by and have a chat. And you can talk about anything. It doesn't matter whether it's in the news or not in the news. Your views are considered to be as valid as the next man's. I actually was sitting yesterday in a group of people with a serious discussion on whether still the question, did we really go to the moon? Or was it one great big con that it was all manufactured? And we're perfectly happy for people to let's see. Gary Toynton. Good morning, Gary. And Gary Toynton. Actually, we are hoping to get Gary on at some stage because his very, very talented sketches. The problems with lockdown have been enormous, and it's taken us a little time to figure out how we can do some of these things, because we are small potatoes at the moment, but we're growing from a tiny little seed potato. So we are going to have a big potato plant, which eventually will produce tons and tons of potatoes. So our broadcast is designed to open up the doors to anybody who wishes to pop by, to sit down, to have a chat, and to let us know what they're thinking and what's going on in the world. It's worked reasonably well for the last 2 days, 3 days, I suppose. Tuesday, Wednesday. Today is the third day, and so far today we've had some interesting people, and we hope that for the rest of the time that we've got together, apart from Connor, that we will get various people drop by. We are here. We invite you. The White Hart Hotel, for those people who live in Lewes and are new to the town, is the big old coaching inn right opposite the courthouse. And boy, is that interesting, seeing who is marching in and out of the courthouse. And an interesting courthouse it is as well. It's an old coaching inn, which is famous for being the site in which is described as the American revolutionary, and I suppose that he was, but he was a Brit, Tom Paine, who decided or developed the theories that the ruling elite had got too much power and that some of it should be devolved to the average man. And he would mix with people in London, such as Ben Franklin, the American philosopher. And it was reported to have, as he passed through London and past Westminster, have waved his hand and said there should be a chamber there for the people. And what should they call it? The House of Commons. Ring a bell? As we speak, the House of Commons is in turmoil. We have got problems in our House of Commons. We have got charges that we have a Prime Minister who lied to the House. Now, I do understand ethics. It's important that we have ethical government. What I don't understand is how they can make a meal of it when in fact what we've got is we've got war and pestilence and economic deprivation and social evils such as mental stress, poverty, lack of proper policing. We really have a lot of social evils to face. And at the moment, our politicians, for one reason or another, are fixated with whether the Prime Minister had an iced cake for his birthday during lockdown. Yeah, he shouldn't have. He was a naughty boy. And I wonder how many thousands more, and particularly those who are yelling and screaming about him, were doing likewise. There were lots of people in high places who cheated. I hope that if we are going to bring the Prime Minister to book, we're going to try and suss out a lot of the others who did naughty things. Never mind whether they belonged to a political party, or whether they were individuals, or whether they were bankers, or whomsoever. We want to make sure that the people who are calling the kettle black aren't just pot boilers who are a bit naughty themselves. If we're going to actually go after the Prime Minister, let's do it from a position of ethical justice and not just because we are part of a howling mob. Anyway, that's the way we see it. Hopefully, in 5 minutes, we should see Connor Winton pop up, and we're able to start to talk to him. What's happening in Lewes? It's a fine day. It is a fine day. The law courts are obviously very busy at the moment. And this particular law court, because it's been in the sizes of the Crown Court, and is a Crown Court, has had some pretty exciting cases over the years. Not least of which was the acid bath murderer, Christie, who taunted the police by saying, if you haven't got a body, you can't prove murder. But a police lady, actually, this is in the 1940s, a police lady discovered that one of his victims, and he murdered ladies for their money, their possessions, having charmed them, it had a gallstone, and they discovered the gallstone, and they could prove that it belonged to her, and that he dumped her in a bath of acid and dissolved the body. And he was tried across the road. And people older people can remember that as boys, they would pile into the courthouse and they would watch the trial of this famous murderer. And they would take out their bootlaces and they would turn them into little hanging knots, and they would lean over, and as he sat in the dock, so they would swing their laces in a hangman's noose towards him. But he was a very urbane character, and sat and did the Times crossword, quite convinced that he wasn't going to be found guilty, that they didn't have enough evidence. But he was, and it took them 12 minutes to make up their mind that he should go to the gallows. And go to the gallows he did. There are many more. There's the Eastbourne Murderer, the doctor, who conservative estimates say he probably bumped off about 150 people before. And they never really did properly catch him. They knew who he was. Once again, he taunted the police. So we've had our share of people. And in the prison just down the road, they hanged people until the mid-1800s in public. And the last one, the lady who was known as the Onion Pie Murderer, had something like 4,000 people turn out to watch her swing. The train was a new phenomenon. And people would go down and bring a picnic so that they could see this woman hang. There were thousands and thousands more in Brighton. It was the same era for another killer who unmercifully battered his common law wife to death in the park in Brighton, and stuffed her in the cupboard in his apartment until the smell gave him away. And he was also sent to the gallows, and they hung his body outside Brighton Town Hall, and there were tens of thousands turned up to take a look. And that was how you got your kicks in those days. There was no Netflix. So we live in the middle of some very interesting times. Now, hopefully, we're coming up to 5 o'clock. We should see in a little while, through the wonder of electronics, a little box appear. And in that box should be the head and shoulders of Connor Winton, who is going to chat to us. And let's hope that the scheme works. It's sometimes been known not to, which leaves me high and dry because I've got to actually keep you happy chatting until somebody drops by. And you can see that I have an empty bar all to myself, that I would love to see somebody appear behind me and sit down and say, "Good morning, Keith," so that we can just chat a little about various things. But in the meantime, why don't we actually go and see what we got here? And perhaps pay you right. Okay. Now, one of the things that we are going to do over the summer is make sure that we stay on top of the Jubilee. Harry is being a naughty boy again. He's strutting the stage, making it sound as if he is personally responsible for looking after Granny, in other words, the Queen. And those people around her are not working in her best interests. Well, if that's designed to stir anything, then having a go at royalty that way. Let's just remind ourselves about what this year is. Not a very good year for Her Majesty, except that there are some important celebrations. And there we are. Good morning.
Morning.
How are you this morning?
I'm fine, thank you. Yourself?
Not too bad, thank you.
Good, good.
The world is waiting with bated breath to see what's coming out of the White Hart this morning.
Oh, you never know.
There we are. I'm just checking that we got the right. We got the right link. It all seems to be working. So hopefully Connor will be with us. Let's just chat for a moment or two about the celebrations. They have been marred with controversy. And have we become a fractious society? Even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we would join together and we would party in the name of the monarch. There are a lot of people that say you shouldn't have royalty, the cost, etc., and the elitism. Well, it's all very well, but you know, it's much like everything else. Is we've got an enormous number of critics in our society, an enormous number of critics, but they never seem to have any suggestion as to, once they've created the gap, once they've created a hiatus, as to what they should fill it with. And that's easy. You have a president. Oh, yeah. Has anybody bothered to look at the problems that countries that are presidential systems have? I don't have to look much further than the Americas, do you? Where governance and government is so far out of touch with the people that they actually got a Donald Trump for 4 years. And while it was a protest vote, in my opinion, they weren't really doing much to demonstrate that they wanted rid of the old guard. They wanted rid of the Republicans. They wanted rid of the Democrats. And what they got was Donald Trump, who didn't exactly carry the flag the way that the average man in the street who was voting as a protest had anticipated. So if you really want to see what you can have as a presidency, take a look at that. A constitutional monarchy is a pretty good bet, actually. The Queen has very limited powers, but constitutionally, she is the head of state. We can't do anything without a head of state. And she is a pretty solid head of state. One of the beauties, if you like, of having the Queen as the head of state is that there is a consistency at the very top. Yes, governments may come, governments may go, but there's not much difference in the spearhead, the concord, if you like, of our hierarchy. It's well worthwhile. Now, I'm not sure whether I should actually try to send another invitation to Connor. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It should be 5 o'clock in the morning in New York. And we hopefully are going to hear from him. And that this system will work. It worked earlier with Andrew, and I see no reason why it shouldn't work now. In the meantime, you just have to put up with me for a little while until such time as our guest comes along. And we are able to have a proper chat. I'm going to take it easy because that's what this couple of hours is all about. It's about easy peasy. It's about being relaxed. It's being about getting upset if you wish, but it is all about making sure that we've got a forum for debate, a forum for the people of Lewes, and for that matter, people elsewhere, to express their views without fear of being overridden by an avaricious owner or an authoritarian government. This is totally free. I wouldn't say unbiased. On the contrary, we're biased all over the place, but there's a nice balance because they're biased. That's what we're trying to do. Let me just keep on putting in bits and pieces while we're waiting. Oh, there we are. That's me. And that's some of the things that we do. We yell and we scream and we chant. And it's important that we have the forum to be able to do that. We are, apart from Gary, we only have Gary. I shouldn't put it that way. We're very pleased to have Gary, but the indicators are showing that there are several people now viewing, and if you want to be part of it, well, actually, get up and walk down to the high street, walk down to the White Hart, walk in and meet. Well, Jane is on holiday this week. Jane is quite lovely. And she's the lady that you first meet in reception. Or Sally, who is the wife of the owner, or is a joint owner, or is part of the family that owns it. Or Shannon, who is really quite lovely and keeps everybody on the hop. It's a nice hotel. It's a historic hotel. And it's just right and has the atmosphere for debate. So it's here. Drop in. See what we've got. See who you can shout at. See how you can voice your views. We're very happy to do that. Have we got Connor? No, not yet. I'm very tempted to see if we can go with another invitation, just to make sure that we're able to keep things on the straight and narrow. It's a very informal thing, so let's have another go, shall we? Okay, a new message, it says. And that's what we'll do, is to all right, there we go. We'll send it again. And there we are back. And I don't think actually for you we ever went away. Right, we've got a message from Melissa, our New York producer, to say that she's shaking Connor awake, and that he will be with us very, very shortly. So there we are. We've got Gary says the White Hart looks nice, Keith. Indeed, I'm glad that you're taking a look at it. It is a nice hotel. It's an interesting hotel. I know that you come to Eastbourne from time to time, Gary, so I was surprised that perhaps you haven't been in it. But it is a nice place, a good-looking place. It's very old, very ancient. It's got terrific history, and it still serves a decent pint. So there we are. That's the that's the place that we're broadcasting from, and we're doing our experiment this morning by going overseas to New York, where it's 5 o'clock in the morning, and Connor is being woken up, gently shaken awake by his mother, who is saying, "Oi, get your backside out of bed, my boy. They're expecting you in London." Well, they would call it London. In fact, it's expecting you in Lewes. So we will hopefully have Connor with us shortly. The newspaper headlines this morning. There is mostly taken up with Harry, Prince Harry, who has upset everybody by making it sound as if he is being proprietorial towards Grandma, and that she isn't being looked after properly by those of us left at home while he's off in California. And also that he's playing fast and loose with her celebrations. That coffee is cold, by the way, but it's still a lifesaver. It still pops down into the gullet quite nicely. He's sort of saying, "I may or may not come to your celebrations, Grandma. And I'm really worried about the fact that the people around you may not be looking after you and looking after your best interests." I mean, it is, to say the least, very strange. And some people have suggested that he has got his own problems when it comes to mental stress. Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. Certainly, I mean, he's a soldier. We mustn't forget that he's represented his country and he's been very brave. So we do need to give him a certain amount of now is see is Gary is getting cheeky now because what he's saying is, am I sure that that's coffee and that it's not actually a concealed gin and tonic? Well, it is not a concealed gin and tonic. I wish it was. I would be very happy to have a concealed gin and tonic. But going back to the this issue with Prince Harry is, I think, perhaps like a lot of politicians at the moment, and a lot of our leaders in society, they don't realize just how powerful they are just by virtue of being who they are, and that when they say something, that a lot of attention is paid, and that when Harry says something about the Queen, is that people still think that he has a strong voice, and indeed he does. But to say I may or I may not, or I'm not at all sure that Granny is being looked after properly, it does not contribute to any sort of debate. If you don't come, we respect your wishes not to come. If you do come, she, above all, would be delighted to see you. And I think that you would find that, despite your shenanigans, that we, generally speaking, as a nation, still embrace you as a member of the royal family, and that we would be happy to see you. There are those, of course, who think that the royal family are overbearing, and that they shouldn't be behaving the way that they do. So it's a good topic of debate. When things go wrong, it's always difficult to handle them when you're particularly on your own. But the beauty of our type of television is that we can do it on our own. I am sitting in splendor at 20 past 8, 20 past 10 on a Thursday morning. Is it Thursday? Yes, it is. On a Thursday morning with not too many people trundling through the bar this morning. It's been quite busy the last 2 mornings. Of course, this morning when perhaps I was relaxing and thinking there would be plenty of people to chat to, there aren't. So I have to chat to myself or chat to you. When they talk about a chat show, this is the epitome of it all. It's just, I've got to keep chatting. But hopefully we are going to find we got Connor in a short period of time. His mother has said that she's getting him ready to come on board, and we'll try hard to stay on top of where they are. Okay, let's go back. The Mirror. Are you coming or not? Then is saying to Harry, and then the Metro quotes Harry as saying, "Diana helps me to cope." That with a lot of the issues that he has to face, and he was traumatized by the death of his mother when he was quite small. But I think he's playing on this quite a bit. Is poor little Harry. Well, a lot of us were poor little whatever for a whole variety of reasons. We simply had to shoulder the pressures and get on with it, which we did. So if you feel any sort of sympathy for Harry and Meghan, remember that they are only suffering what millions more have, particularly because of COVID. And particularly since we probably as a society are not particularly well placed, well developed enough to be able to handle it. I don't want to get into an argument about royalty. I don't mind having an argument about royalty. I've got my own views. But I think that at the moment, it's a bit like Boris's birthday cake that everybody's frothing at the mouth over at the moment. And people are getting all their knickers into a twist in Westminster. And is it that important in the scheme of things? Is it that important when this morning's reports say that the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, is warning countries that he considers may be trying to do harm to the Russian Federation, that he's now got missiles that are loaded with nukes, that he's not above using them. And I think, to be quite honest with you, we should take that threat seriously. And we should address it. I've worked in Russia. I can't say that I can't say that I ever met Putin, but I did meet some of his senior cabinet ministers, if you want to call them that. And I think that when this man says that he's brandishing a nuclear missile, that he is brandishing a nuclear missile. Make no mistake about it. So it's the sort of thing that perhaps we should be looking at. Okay, I'm going to try and take it easy for you. Let's this is local. Oh, right. Okay. Let's have a look at. I was talking earlier about Susan Harris's photos, which she piles out of bed at some ungodly hour, and did so. And she's got a new fresh batch, she tells me, which we will can enjoy soon. But here's some of her old photographs. It only takes a few seconds. So there we are, a nice little collage of photographs of the town in which we live. Let me tell you just a little bit about this hotel. It was, in fact, we can go back to the very beginning. I do have some notes here on it. That is the first master of the White Hart was a man called Richard Verrill. The name Verrill is quite interesting because it's a well-known name in Lewes, and many distinguished people have carried that name. But it actually only emanates from one place, and that is the village of Firle, which is about 5 miles outside Lewes. And the village of Firle is interesting in as much as it is owned. It is a tied village. It is owned by Lord Gage. Lord Gage, having, not he personally, but the family, resided on that land and owned it from about 1400. And indeed, a little pop, and I will carry on with the story of the White Hart, of the Verrills, of Lord Gage, of the village of Firle in a moment. But let's. There is Connor, looking at tousled hair, just having pulled himself out of bed. And thank you for doing that, Connor. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Keith. I just got out of bed, so it's a little tired, but I'm certainly awake, and I'm certainly glad to be here.
Yeah, good. Well, we're glad to have you. And we were actually just giving you a little history lesson about this hotel that we now broadcast from, the White Hart. And indeed, you visited the White Hart, about 2 months ago, would it be?
A bit more than that, but yeah, I said.
Well, you know something of where we're broadcasting from, and the reason and the background.
Yes, Thomas Paine famously wrote from that hotel, didn't he?
He did indeed, and we are our broadcast spot in the hotel, made available to us by the owners of the hotel. Very grateful. is one of the places that he was supposed to have sat and chatted to other members of the community who were busy having a pint as well, and how he helped formulate some of the thoughts that created your country, if you like. Right now, one of the things that well, one or two things that I want to find out. When you were over here, you did a tour of our brewery, Harvey's, which is quite famous, and you made notes on the back of an envelope and took it back to try and replicate Harvey's beer. How did you make out?
Well, I've been doing some experiments, and unfortunately, I haven't quite cracked it. But I think this month I'm going to try and finally get it right. I think I've just quite gotten there.
Because I'm ready. I'm waiting to go down and see the chief brewer of Harvey's, Miles Jenner, and who actually gave you a personal tour, did he not? He showed you around, and to be able to say now, here is the result of your kindness in giving Connor a tour, because he is now making a form of Harvey's in New York.
Well, I think I've almost cracked the bitter, but I just think I need to get the hops right. The hops are the most important part, and I think that there's a very local sort of, it's hard to get those local Sussex hops here in the United States. So,
yes, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Well, is Harvey's bracket US will be very interesting if you actually do crack it. So keep us posted on that. But let's get down to some serious chat now, because I think that the world wasn't quite ready to find out that Russia was serious about invading Ukraine. And it was, and it did. And first of all, it seems that your president, Joe Biden, was a little reluctant to get involved, but has now realized the enormity of what's happened and is involved. Is that a fair assessment? Can you give us your viewpoint, sitting there in the middle, well, not in the middle, but in the heart of the United States? And your view, because you do have some knowledge, I believe, of Ukraine and Russia.
Right. Well, as far as my knowledge of what's being sent over to Ukraine by the U.S. government, it's primarily logistical materials as well as ammunition and weapons. We've sent quite a bit of artillery and of course anti-tank munitions over to the Ukrainians. Unfortunately, there haven't been many vehicles that we've sent as of late. I have a friend in about 10 miles from the front, and he hasn't seen any American vehicles sent over quite yet, but we're looking at the point where that might the Ukrainians might start operating American trucks and tanks and things like that.
Right. So you're giving material help. What's the? I mean, the United States is a big, vast country. I from my time in Canada, I know that there are fair chunks of Ukrainian emigres in a number of cities who would be certainly urging the American government to get involved. But what is the general temper of the United States when it comes to this conflict? What are people in the street saying about it? Or are they ignoring it? Or are they saying, well, it's a little brushwire somewhere off in Europe? Those damn Europeans are always actually somehow creating wars.
I would say that the Americans that I've spoken to, generally speaking, are of course in favor of Ukraine. I mean, you'll see people with Ukrainian flags, and of course they have their support and they donate money, of course. But I think generally, the American viewpoint hasn't really changed very much since the first and Second World War, where it's over there, it's in Europe, it's on the continent. Why do we care so much? but of course, our government's doing something, but people are sort of just nominally sort of stating the support. They're saying, "Oh yes, we support Ukraine," but really, it is to a lot of us a war that's happening across the Atlantic Ocean, and why does it concern our daily lives?
So you say to a lot of us, but do I take it then that there is a differing viewpoints on this?
If you were to go to New York City, you would find that most people would be in favor of Ukraine. There's a Ukrainian village in New York City, Manhattan, and but if you were to go, say, to Missouri, I doubt you'd find anyone who would be particularly plussed by it. I think most people wouldn't really care too much. But that's sort of how it is. America is quite vast, and so you'll find that different regions will have more or less concern.
Can you see America going to war?
That's a good question. As you know, Russia is an adversary. They're no longer really a peer adversary, apparently, but they're an adversary of the United States. The issue, of course, is whether or not Putin would dare to use his nuclear arsenal in the event of U.S. intervention, and that's always the concern. So, as much as we'd like to get involved, as much as I would say most Americans would support at least some U.S. involvement on the ground, there is the concern that Russia has a madman at the helm. So, it really must be sort of a tempered response. Unfortunately, we can't send the tanks just rolling through.
Right.
Excuse me.
Yes. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello. Oh wow.
Excuse me, is this the place for auditions for Britain's Got Talent?
It is.
Right, well,
Yeah.
I'm a ventriloquist, and I'd like to demonstrate. I shall do some. Here we go.
Come and sit down.
Hello,
Come
everybody.
and sit down.
Well, hurry up, because I've only got 5 minutes.
He's only got 5 minutes. And he's always got 5 minutes.
Come on.
And
Who are you then?
well, is you actually, who's that then there? Who's that man there? Well, that man there is. Come and sit down here.
Well,
And let's see whether we can actually fit you in. Yes.
What do you mean, fit me in?
Come on. I can take myself out and I can put you in.
Well,
there we go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Now, Connor, I don't think that you met while you were in Lewes recently.
No.
The gentleman that has just joined us. But I'm not quite sure what's the best way to actually.
Have I thrown you, Keith? Have I thrown you? Have I sort of thrown you your running order?
No, we don't have a running order.
Well, you don't run anyway. I don't run. Never run anyway. Anyway, is this your guest?
This is Connor, who is sitting in New York.
New York?
And I think you may have had some discourse with his mother, Melissa.
Oh yeah.
Who
lovely woman.
Absolutely.
Lovely woman.
Right. And Connor is giving us a little viewpoint on how people feel in the United States about the war in the Ukraine.
Oh,
because we tend to think of it as being a next door war.
We do.
But in fact, it's a bit of a problem sometimes in not understanding. And as Connor just said, America is vast. And while you may well find people in New York are concerned, that a lot of people across the vast continent could give it a fig. And it is.
Well, listen, Keith, I didn't realise. I didn't wish to intrude, but I thought I ought to just say that I'm here. And if you ever want a ventriloquist of any sort, or any talk about Lewes, some other time. But I love to your friend there. I love New York. I lived in California. Lovely people.
Let's see whether, in fact, excuse me. There we go. Now who's that? Connor, if you'll just excuse us a minute. Lean in. Yes. Right.
Oh, hello there.
And if he looks like Spike Milligan, he is Spike Milligan reincarnated.
Anyway, this is. I didn't realise. I thought you were auditioning for parts, and I've got plenty of parts.
Yeah, well, we are very happy to have as many parts as you've got.
That's not.
Yeah. And for those people in Lewes or not, other parts of the world, this is John Henty, a very well-known character, former BBC broadcaster, and also.
You're running out. You've forgotten all the things I do.
Well, one of the things that is my favourite thing is for those of you who may have seen The Snowman or read The Snowman, is that the author of those books,
Raymond Briggs,
is not only a friend of John Henty's, but John Henty has done a one-man show about Raymond Briggs and
he's so.
And his sofa, yes.
That's it. We should talk.
Well, yeah.
And he writes all these. Now, listen, your friend in New York is thinking this is rather silly. I'm not needed, so you better talk to him. Don't let me intrude.
Well, we'll just take 2 more minutes because people who see me striding around Lewes, most people know you. Those people who don't should find out. So he is an honorary member of the Curmudgeon.
Yeah.
And
men with hats. Men with hats. I've got a hat. That's my hat. Always recognise my hat. What's under it is another matter.
Now, without getting him onto a pet thing, but also there was a comedian called Max Miller, and John Henty is the leading member of the Max Miller fan club. Is that right?
He used to wear a hat as well. It was a Homburg, a white Homburg. Now there's a funny thing. Now listen, talk to your friend in New York because we're being rather rude, Keith.
Very well. We'll go back to Connor. Connor. There we go. You have to get used to the eccentric and esoteric ways of Lewes. So perhaps we can just carry on where we left off, because I think it is quite important. If this war escalates, and it looks as if it's going to, where do you see the United States aiming? It does seem to us here that President Joe Biden has started off very softly, but it's getting harder and harder in his rhetoric as he goes along. Are we wishful thinking there, or would you read it that way?
Well, of course, the situation in Ukraine, while the Russians have pulled away from Kiev, accusations of genocide and all that, these are very serious, and of course important, especially for a world leader like the United States to make, especially when indeed that's what's going on. And so I think that because this is such a serious situation, because this is such a important time for the United States and how we're viewed by the world, that we do eventually act on it instead of just giving ammunition and other kinds of support just to the Ukrainians, but to actually have at least advisors on the ground. So it's getting more urgent, and I think in some senses it will escalate, but we'll see over the coming months how that will escalate, if it will escalate, if the Russians will pull out. But unfortunately, that's looking less and less likely as the days go by. But at least from what I can tell, that's sort of the direction is it will. Yes, it will eventually escalate until we see the Russians eventually leave Ukraine.
Where do Americans see China in all of this?
So your average American doesn't again has less of a perspective on this, because again the average American really thinks that what's going on in the rest of the world shouldn't affect what's going on in this cornfield in Iowa. But for those of us who are watching the news, for those of us who do know a little bit about what's going on, we see China as sort of being Russia's friend in all of this. and so basically being in that same sort of axis of evil. And so that's sort of the general American perspective, is that the Chinese are supporting the Russians and we're supporting the Ukrainians, and the rest of the world is supporting Ukraine. So.
Right. So China is still peripheral to the whole thing, in your view.
Well, I believe China's hedging its bets, but I think most of us here in the States would sort of view them as an adversary and as a supporter of Putin. So.
Right. Now, Connor, let's forget Ukraine, because in many ways, the whole concept of the United States, as you say, it's a big, sprawling continent. What are the key things apart from this conflict that you, as a young man, you're what, 23, 24?
23.
Yeah, 23. And you've got two old fogies here who see things quite differently because of our age and our background. So, as a young man, at one stage, it was all terribly exciting, and you dashed off to Europe as with mommy and daddy giving you some money, and it was an adventure. But how do the young now view things that are happening in Europe, or do they care?
Well, you see, a lot of Americans, younger Americans, have this impression of Europe as being somewhat of a as being somewhat of a in a sense a fairy tale storybook land. They view it as being archaic, as old, as being in a sense almost unimportant. And I think this is the result of European nations being generally reticent to involve themselves in a lot of world affairs, and I think that at least without the United States, and I think that's generally how we view it is. We go over there and it's sort of like a playground for us. So playground for a lot of kids. And of course, I went over to learn more about the various cultures of countries in Europe. But these kids, they go over and they sort of see it as a this is an extraterritorial area of the United States. In many ways.
So you almost see us as nice doddering old folk. That might have the odd church or the odd castle. We should come over and take a look. But I was interested in your comment is that younger Americans don't think that we Europeans are central to world affairs.
Well, yes, I think that generally is the case. If you were to ask a young American, what role does Germany play in global defense? What role does Italy play in the world economy? They would say that Italy doesn't play a role in the global economy. They would say that Germany doesn't play a role in the global economy, because a lot of people here are very don't know as much, but certainly the vast sort of interior of the United States. How does yeah.
May I chip in there?
You may indeed, yes.
I've lived in America. I know Middle America. I have friends in Detroit. And one of the big problems, if I may say so, regardless of young or old, the fact is that millions of Americans have never been outside America. That's the problem. And therefore, when you talk about world affairs, for those in Middle America, Montana and places like that, there is only one world, and it's the world that surrounds them. Millions of Americans in Middle America have never even been to either coast, east or west. They're very insular, and that's the problem. I'm not being critical, but that's the way it is.
Any reaction to that?
Well, I mean it is true. There are a lot of people who haven't actually left their small town, and like I said, Missouri, Iowa, anywhere. They're I would say that's absolutely correct. Most people whom I've spoken to, even in New York, which is a coastal area, haven't been outside of the United States. And but of course, here's the thing: is where do you go if you leave if you leave the borders of the United States and in North America? You have two other countries really in North America that you can go to. Maybe the Bahamas if you decide to go to the Caribbean. Whereas most people, even in England, it's a ferry ride to France, right? So the idea of being connected into world affairs is almost unthinkable to someone who's living in the interior of the United States, Whereas because again, because your average American, going to Paris would be almost like going to say, for example, someone in the 19th century. It would be like them going to Zimbabwe. It would be a very exotic sort of experience, and I think a lot of Americans, frankly, don't care for that experience, and so you do see these insular opinions crop up.
John?
No, that's absolutely true. The worrying thing, though, you haven't mentioned, of course, Mr. Trump waiting in the wings. Maybe we don't want to go down that road, but that's the biggest fear I have of all, actually, because those middle Americans in particular, and this is a generalization, but in the main, they're the ones who are insular and are going to vote for one man in the next election, and heaven knows what will happen then. Here, Keith, and my friend in America, forgive me, I don't wish to be rude, but my wife has got some shopping to do. So I just want to say, well done, Keith. Well done, our friend in America. Keep it up. I shall be back when I've practiced my ventriloquism, because at the moment it's very difficult. But otherwise, Max Miller, all the rest of it. Thank you, Keith. God bless you. And enjoy the rest of the day. Goodbye, everybody. John Henty. Hooray!
Well, be careful you don't take the whole studio with you.
Don't take the studio. No, let's be right. Look,
Hey, well done.
Thank you, Keith. God bless you.
Okay, good to see you, John.
Lovely, lovely man. Lovely man. Won't say a word again.
Right, Connor. I think we touched on a couple of interesting things there. I wonder. I mean, it is good to have you and your mother and Suzanne Mouchot and Mark Landsman there in the United States as part of the Mirador team, because it gives us a dimension that we wouldn't normally have. But I wonder if we can keep you for a little while longer, even though we've pulled you out of bed, because I think that there are a number of things that people don't understand, and it is rare that you will hear Canada mentioned as a force in American affairs, and yet they are a major neighbor to the north. They are asset rich, if you like, in as much as the natural resources are huge. How nowadays do Americans feel about Canadians and their role in not only the destiny of North America, but also perhaps in a shrinking global environment in the world?
Well, I think that the Canadians are generally viewed as Americans, but not. They're viewed as America light, really, which is sort of how I used to view it as well. They are a major trading partner, but I think generally most Americans will have a generally better view of Canadians than, say, for example, of Europeans, because we sort of view them as sort of one and the same, especially the further up the border you go, the states which border Canada. Generally speaking, have a fairly good opinion of Canadians, generally.
Be a good boy, because Mama is watching.
All right.
Yeah, she's just come on to where you make comments and said that she's watching you carefully because
Oh boy.
I assume that she's in the next room. So if you put a foot wrong, you're going to suddenly find the wrath of Mama come roaring through the door.
Maybe.
um, the whole idea of a sport seems to have, in many ways, ceased to be sport and is really big business. Is that still true, or is it generally true of the United States as much as it is in Europe? Because here, I mean, football particularly is obscene amounts of money sloshed through these clubs. I mean, young men of 18 or 19 are paid, £100,000 a week, and sometimes they don't even see the training ground, let alone play for their teams. I mean, you have a history in the United States of commercial sport, if you like. Is where does sport stand in the scheme of things now in the United States society?
Well, we had a brief reprieve from having to really deal with that nonsense for about a year during COVID. But well, I think the role of American football or basketball has slightly diminished in the public eye just as a result of the pandemic. I think that it's still a very strong commercial force. In fact, I think it's more in a sense since marketable. I mean, in Europe, in England, your football, what we call soccer, there's a lot of money going through it, yes, but it isn't as much of a retail enterprise, as much of a commercial enterprise as it is in the United States. I don't think the United States really likes to make merchandise and really hones in on that. And of course, as you know, we have baseball, we have American football, and we have basketball. And so we have all those three, and we really like to, as with many things in the United States, commercialize and sell products and all these other things that there are aftermarkets for it even, and it is a very, very serious thing. You'll get on the train, you'll see hundreds of baseball fans going to see these things, and they're all wearing jerseys, and they all have memorabilia, fake memorabilia, and it really is an incredibly commercialized sort of business type deal in the United States, really.
What sort of salaries are sportsmen paid?
It depends on the sport and their level of how popular they are, but they can be paid 10, 20, 30, millions of dollars.
Individually, individuals are paid millions of dollars. Yeah,
millions, yes.
Yeah. One of the things, I mean, I lived in Canada for a long while, and in those days, one of the big games was ice hockey. But somebody told me, well, ice hockey isn't as big now as it was. Is that true?
Well, I'm an American, so I wouldn't know. Ice hockey is a more of a regional thing here in the United States. There's some regions of the United States where it's popular, and there's some regions of the United States where people don't even know the teams. So I would say that's more of a Canadian thing or a regional American thing.
Right. Whereas football and baseball would be absolutely coast to coast.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So we're still talking football and baseball as being the two major sports.
Football and baseball, and now basketball, yes.
It is interesting, I think, that American football is trying to make inroads into the United Kingdom. I mean, we already have a National Football League match or two played here between teams there. But there is talk of a franchise, a London franchise. so that you would play the London Lakers or whatever would be playing the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, do you think that is a healthy thing? Is it likely to really happen? What's your view?
Well, American football's popularity is already declining here in the States, but I think that the sort of move away from the continent and to a more global, or even to the other English-speaking countries by the United Kingdom is, frankly, making that more of a possibility. Because as you know, the United Kingdom has sort of drifted away from Europe and sort of ended up being closer to its former colonies, Australia and Canada and of course the United States.
Well, when you say that American football is beginning to lose its popularity, to what? What is the growing sport?
The growing sport, I would say, would probably be basketball. That's growing a little bit.
Yeah, now that is interesting, because at one time basketball was sort of considered to be just a college sport, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay. Well, Connor, thanks for being with us, and I wonder if we give you a minute or two to express any opinions or any thoughts that you have, as you think about Europe, and particularly since your mother works with us and you work with us, so you have a little bit more relationship than most. Are there things that you sometimes say, I would love to be able to say to the British people or to the Europeans, if only they understood this about America? I mean, in other words, it's your 2 or 3 minutes to have a say about anything you like.
That's a lot of topics to choose from. Well, I suppose if I'm talking to anyone who's listening now in England, I would say that the United States, we've been a little bit out of it for the past 4 years, but we're slowly coming back. We'll be more involved in Europe in the coming decade, because of what's going on in Ukraine, but also because of a number of other economic factors which are going to present themselves. But yes, I would say that I would familiarize yourself with American culture more so than ever at the moment, because it is going to become a little bit more present. You had World War II, and now you have this. So that's what I would say: is learn the names of baseball and football teams, I would say.
John Henry did express one thing that I think plays on people's minds is, and there is a report this morning of Piers Morgan interviewing Donald Trump, and Trump losing his rag and storming out of the interview. But where is Donald Trump a serious threat to, if you like, the presidency the next time around? Is he likely to be a credible and likely winner as a candidate?
Well, the United States, how we elect our leaders in the United States may be a bit strange to those in Europe, especially since most countries in Europe have a parliamentary democracy. But depending on how the United States midterm elections go in November, we will see whether or not the Republicans have a chance of winning the general elections in 2024. So it really is difficult, really is impossible to say at this point, because American politics really are quite volatile.
Right. In other words, you can say any runner or rider at the moment it could go past the winning post. It's impossible to pick a favorite.
There could be someone who comes out of nowhere next year. So we really don't know.
So is once again, I go back to my original question: is Trump a threat? Could he be a real candidate, or did he shoot his bolt by being a president for 4 years?
I think that Trump certainly has the ability to potentially clinch the presidency again. It has happened in American history. It's been rare, but it has happened. That presidents who serve a term and then were unelected were reelected. It's happened, but it's more rare. I think he will definitely try and run again, but it's a question of who the Democrats run and who opposes him in 2024. So 2024. So we'll see more as that develops. But I think he could run, and it's possible, but unlikely.
So is John Henty's fear that he would get a credible following? You think is not without foundation?
It's not without foundation, but it isn't a sure thing, really. It's anyone's game still, really.
Right. Okay. And how much longer have we got before the next presidential election?
2024. So it's about 2 years.
Right. So we're about halfway through the present. I mean, it's funny. To me, the whole election only took place yesterday. But in fact, it was 12 months ago, 15 months ago.
Well, the last presidential election, was quite some time ago. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, look, thanks for being with us, Connor. We are going to get you out of bed from time to time because we do think that it's important that there is a reflection of what's going on in the United States. Whether we like it or not, as Churchill said, two great nations separated by a common language.
Indeed.
But I think that in many ways, we do tend to say the Americans, Canadians, British, Italians, and not take into account the fact that these nations, the healthy part of them is that they are a great mix of different people, different cultures, different political views, and that we can't really lump people into just one amorphous mass. That Americans are could easily be 50 different cultures, if you like, with 50 different states, and that we in Britain, tiny though we are, find that people in the north don't think at all like people in the south, and yet that should be reflected out of Westminster. So I think it's important for us to stay up to date. I don't want to take you away from your programs on beer making because we're desperate to get them. But if you don't mind getting up once in a while at 5 o'clock in the morning to join us and have this sort of chat, we would appreciate it very much.
All right, then. You'll see more of me as the weeks go on.
That's great. Right. Are you going to go back to bed now?
I think I'll do some work that I have to do, but with the United States Navy. But we'll see. Certainly.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Well, good luck for the rest of the day, and thanks for being with us, Connor Winton in New York, and very much associated with Mirador, and a good reflection on what's happening in the United States. Cheers. Bye, Connor.
Bye.
Right, here we are back in the bowels of democracy, the White Hart Hotel in Lewes, and we had John. We had John Henty come pouring through, and John says that he will come back, and we look forward to that because he's a great character around town, and a great radio personality in his day, but also does a number of things, which not least of which is, as I recall, he was the voice of Crystal Palace Football Club for a number of years. The announcer who said, you find the Lewes on the left, the cloakroom on the right, and here is the winning lottery ticket or raffle ticket or whatever. And a vital part of football life. But John Henty's one-man show as Raymond Briggs' Sofa was a great success when it was shown here a couple of years or so ago, and hopefully he'll bring that back. But another opportunity for us to meet a Lewesian, a well-known Lewesian, a curmudgeon, a character, and like many of us, colourful to say the least. Right, let's just let me play a little bit of video just to get us off the hook here, shall we? I wonder what this one is all about. And there we are. I was just checking to see. Let's see if we've got any more. Right, Gary and Melissa, and I'm delighted that our international audience is still there. We do get responses. One of the things that upset me, I suppose, was that I have a large number of Russian friends and colleagues in the media industry. We don't always see eye to eye. We don't always think alike, but we do respect one another's views. And when the hostilities first broke out in Ukraine, I sent a little note to, well, I don't know, perhaps 50 or 60 people with whom I discourse regularly, sort of saying, look, I'm terribly sorry about this, and I hope that it doesn't stop us from communicating. And I didn't hear back from anyone. And eventually I began to realize that these little notes from me weren't getting through to my old colleagues. That the internet was being censored. And then a week ago, suddenly out of nowhere, up popped a little message from my friend, colleague, and former student, Yulia. I won't give her last name because I don't think just in case it puts her into any difficulty.
Unknown caller.
The phone is going mad this morning. We'll keep it on so that we know that the people are trying to get hold of us. But for the moment, we'll just ignore it and let it go away. And if anybody is serious, they'll leave a message. And if they're not, they won't. Right, I forgot what I was talking about now. What were we talking about? I don't even have anybody in here at the moment to remind us. But anyway, the fact is that this has been quite lively this morning. We had Andrew in the news hour, Andrew Sloan. We've had John Henty, and we've had Connor Winton in the second hour. So we've sort of kept up the momentum. We would love to see some of you do exactly what John Henty did this morning. suddenly there he is. He wanders in and he's able to sit down and have a chat. And in this particular instance, while John tends to be a bit of a comedian, he was quite happy to chat to Connor, who was of a more serious intent. Although Connor and his beer making is well, I suppose it's not to be sneered at, but it's hardly going to win wars. But we're very happy to see you. People are beginning to learn that there is a voice here, that they can pop in whenever they feel like it, to sit down and just talk about whatever they want to. Very happy to see you. Sometimes we will have people already slotted, and sometimes we'll just simply take potluck, and if you come in, you talk to whoever we're talking to. So it's that sort of free flow type television. It'll take a little while to catch on, but it is beginning to catch on. Some people are beginning to find us, and if you want to know where we are, it's at the White Hart Hotel, right in the middle of Lewes, and we are in the cocktail bar. And actually, it's a good place to broadcast from. We could actually lean over, and we could find that this. Have we got somebody there? No, the door is actually closed. It's a pity, really. I prefer to have the door open so that people know that they're welcome to come in. Anyway, that's what Mirador is all about at the moment. Some of it will seem to be very slow. Others of it will seem to go very, very quickly. I think that you get a little science on these computers telling you to do certain things. It doesn't tell you why. And I'm always a bit nervous about pushing stuff. I don't know why, because with me, I quite happily cut us off and send us whirling into space, never to be seen again. Right. Let's clear the decks and try to talk for a few minutes about something quite different to what we have talked about. And if you have perhaps got a view, it may be that another controversial issue that is cropping up, that we mentioned yesterday, is that the driverless cars, or driverless cars, are rapidly becoming fairly common. And to reflect that, the DVLA, or those people who are in charge of the highway code, have altered the highway code to include what you can or cannot do in a driverless car. In a driverless car, you can actually take texts on your phone. You can speak on your phone. You can read a newspaper while the car is traveling along. So the whole way of traveling by car is likely to change. I don't think it will be dramatic, although Max yesterday assured us that driverless cars are now on sale, have been for a little while, and that the sales are picking up. So soon we will find that the driverless car is quite popular. And I suppose that's why the law is going to change to allow us to do those things. Don't get fooled into looking at the highway code and thinking that it says that you can actually read a newspaper or use the telephone. Is that means any car. The rules still apply if you're driving an old petrol or a new electric car. Excuse me, that's what happens when you get up early in the morning. You get a car that needs you to put your foot on the accelerator, to slide a gear shift into gear, to grab the steering wheel. Most vehicles are still demanding for that, and you cannot start to read a newspaper or use the telephone under those circumstances. The one is exclusive of the other. So make sure that you obey the law. But changes are on the way, and the driverless car is likely to be a thing heavily of the future. Now, the other thing that is just to demonstrate, if we may, how people start to accept certain trends, and those trends tend not to last. A year ago, everybody would have said, get Netflix. Netflix you must have. Netflix is the leader. Well, it looks as if it's being toppled from its throne, because the subscriptions to Netflix are seriously down. And according to the reports, have taken the company by surprise. That the change in approach to the way that you watch television is now changing yet again. And it's difficult to say where that change is taking place, except that for the subscription type of service that Netflix supplies is not going to last forever. That, in fact, it is something that is creaking at the seams. So how do you watch television? I personally don't watch Netflix. I find that even with the movies and so on that there are on at the moment, that excuse me, yes, like Connor is getting up. Just getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning is for the birds, and I have to say that modern technology. I have a card with online. I've got a few bob sitting in it, enough to buy me a cup of coffee. And will the card work? No, it will not. And I got onto the bus this morning, and it would not. And I had to look at the driver and say, "I'm terribly sorry, but this isn't working. If you want to throw me off the bus," well, he felt he couldn't do that. All I got was for a £1.90 ride. All I got was 50 pence or 60 pence or whatever. And that is modern technology. Is the car didn't work, so as a consequence, I did manage to get to work. I've had a cup of coffee, which I've got on tick at the moment, as they would say. This coffee is part of my debt. And that we the point really is that I am very critical of the use of computers. I think that the use is indiscriminate, and that particularly the financial sector use computers and computing and social media in the way that it suits them, not that it necessarily suits us. Get in touch with your bank. Well, hang on. We broadcast for most of the day. Is it all right if we phone you out of hours? No, you can't do it out of hours. Well, when would you recommend that we actually do it? Well, the computer doesn't make recommendations. If you can't do it the way the computer says, SOL. And therefore, we are in some difficulty, I think, as a race, as a society, when it comes to the use of computers. And here I found one this morning. I've got a few bob to buy stuff. I can't access it because the computer won't let me. And that's when it gets very silly indeed. And I don't particularly care for that sort of application of super technology. I'd be foolish to say, no, I don't approve of any of it, because we're broadcasting to you through the might, if you like, the might of the internet, of computers. Now, let us just check for a moment to see what time it is. It's 11:21, and we are due to bugger off at 11:30. So we've actually got 8 minutes left. 9 if you do it mathematically, but by the time you actually finish talking, is a minute has gone. So I think that probably what we will do is, because I doubt if anybody is going to come barreling through the doors anymore, I doubt whether the world is going to end in the next 7 minutes. So perhaps what we'll do is we will say toodle pip and farewell, and that we will be back tomorrow morning, and hopefully those little spurts that we have can be a little bit more constant as we get used to how we have to handle this, what I think is a brave new world, and some of my colleagues think is a brave new world. And in an age when Netflix is beginning to flicker, when Netflix and services like it are beginning to creak at the seams, is Mirador Television is trying to develop, rather clumsily at the moment, but we'll start to smooth it out very quickly. But the rude and crude form of from the White Hart and affairs from the heart, an important development in the way that television is used to develop our social structures. I've waffled a bit there, haven't I? But I think you get the idea of what I'm talking about. And so I'm going to say cheerio, and we will look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Same time, same place, different people, different atmosphere, and different events. And no 2 days will ever be the same on this television station anymore. It will be events and people that will shape the television station. Thanks to Connor, thanks to Andrew, and thanks to John Henry for being with me. I'm Keith Hayes, and I hope that you'll find. Oh, come on, there. That's much better. You'll find some solace here, that you'll start to use this service. That if you are trying to create a charity fete or get a knitting class together, you can come and you can sit down here. We don't want to just say, oh, a knitting class will take place at the vicarage. We need to know a little bit about it to make it real. And that's what we're trying to do. But we do the same job, same service, to let people know what's happening in our community. Right, enough wobbly-doo. See you tomorrow.